So definitely, there's a bunch of different factors to look at. Number one, lip and tongue ties, but mostly the tongue ties can do it. But if they're adding in pumping, making sure they're using the right flange size. This is something
Mm,
that I'm a big proponent on educating on my
hmm
social media and on my app, is because we think whatever comes in the box is what we
hmm
have to use. But the majority of women, I would say like 90%, actually need a smaller flange size because it's
Oh,
supposed to
wow.
be the size of the nipple, not the
hmm
areola or the breast. So you could have
Right.
the biggest breast, but if you have tiny nipples, you're going to need a
Yeah.
tiny size flange, but the ones that come in the box will be way too big. And then you're pulling in more
Yes.
areola, which leads
Yeah.
to more pain and less milk output.
Right.
So
Oh
that
my
is the
gosh.
number one thing that I tell moms all the time. Like, did you ever measure your flange size? And they're like, no, I just
hmm
used what came in the box. And I have one mom come in and she was like a size 14. She was using like a 25, 27.
Oh, wow. So
So
what
she's
comes
pulling in all her
standard?
areola. It's come standards in almost every single pump is 24 and 27 millimeters.
Okay. Okay.
And I would say the majority of women are 21 millimeters and under. Yeah.
That totally makes sense. Like I'm having mom things right now of remembering back of pumping and like painful, not the like definitely wasn't the right size. I didn't even know that
Right.
you could. So do they go to their manufacturer to get a new one?
No, you can just go on Amazon now, and I have like a
Okay.
free training to show moms exactly how to measure. Like it literally takes like 15 seconds to measure with
Okay.
a tape measure to know your exact size. And if you are breastfeeding and pumping for like a month or so, you will need to increase because they will get larger. But in the
Mhm.
beginning, all these moms are using the wrong sizes, and I
Wow.
feel bad because even in the hospital, if whatever we have, the small size we hold is 21 millimeters. And some moms need like 15 or 17
Oh
and
my
we don't have
gosh.
them. So that's why I always try to encourage and educate moms to do this beforehand. Even if you don't think you're going to use your pump, it's still good to have your correct sizes just
Mhm.
in case you do.
Mhm.
Because no one
Right.
ever knows when they're going to have a baby in
Right.
NICU, and now they need to pump and they don't have the right sizes. And I see that all the time
Oh.
too in the hospital, where a mom's like, "Hey, now I got a pump," and it's like, "Okay, well, you're like a size 15. We only have 21, so I just have to give them the wrong size." And I
Right.
hate that, but it's better than nothing. But I wish there was more education from the pump companies too, to like,
Mhm.
hey, whatever comes in the box isn't necessarily your size. So
Mhm.
so that
So
is the
you
number one thing that I like to tell moms.
so and that help does that help with milk production too? So then
Yeah.
you're expressing the right you're expressing as much as you can and then your
Hmm.
body knows to produce
Yeah.
the right amount.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, because it's how
Anything
it creates the letdown too. Like your nipple
Mhm.
should only be going in. If your areola is going in too, it's not stimulating the correct way to elicit
Right.
an efficient letdown to open your breast
Right.
ducts and release the milk. So that's why it's super important.
This is so interesting. I had the same lactation consultant for all three of my kids, like at this hospital that I was at, and I had the same labor and delivery nurse
Oh my
and
gosh, that's
postpartum.
so
I had
funny.
the same nurse. And it was crazy because it was within 7 years that I had three kids and I knew nothing, none of this. So I'm like, gosh, I wish, well, I'll tell people, but I'm glad that we're interviewing you. Uh,
Yeah.
what about when you, so if you're not producing enough milk, are there things that like nutrition, water,
Mhm.
exercise, like things that can cause that?
Yeah, I don't recommend moms to exercise too much just because it takes so many additional calories just for your body to make milk. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime you're exercising, you're taking away more of those calories, unless
Mm-hmm.
you want to eat a lot more, but it's already like 600 additional calories per day. So it's a
Right.
lot to keep up with. And the
Right.
main thing that I focus on that I hear moms talk about all the time is, oh, I'm drinking plenty of water. I'm drinking plenty of water. My number one question is, well, are you eating enough? Because
Oh.
moms focus so much on hydration that they forget
Mm-hmm.
to actually fuel their bodies nutrition
Mm-hmm.
wise. And it's so important because I remember by the time I had my third daughter, my third child, I had two other kids at home and we were all
Mm-hmm.
hungry all the time, just trying to make food, keep up with my eating,
Mm-hmm.
keep up with her eating. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of moms forget to actually eat enough. So I always encourage moms to try and snack every 2 to 3 hours, like when baby's eating. Constantly
Mm.
refueling your body, constantly keeping
Mhm.
your blood sugar stable, sipping
Mhm.
on smoothies, eating little bars. I used to keep a lunchbox at my bedside. That was my favorite tip, is
Smart.
I would keep a lunchbox at my bedside at night with an ice pack. And I would keep in there like good cheese sticks, some of those apple pouches, little granola
Mm.
bars, little cutie oranges, and or bananas, and I would just keep stuff in there. So in the middle of the night when I'm waking up 2 or 3 times, I would just eat a snack while I was breastfeeding, because you
Smart.
constantly need to be fueling your body.
Right.
Absolutely. And then also power pumping can be really helpful. And I
Oh,
really
it's
encourage
that.
moms to do that. It's like when you pump for about an hour. So you always
Okay.
want to do it first thing in the morning when your prolactin levels are still highest, because those are kind of
Okay.
from the nighttime into the morning is your prolactin levels. And that's what really stimulates your milk production. And you would sit there, you would nurse your baby first, and then you'd hook yourself up to the pump and you pump for about an hour, about 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off. And then you're
Oh.
just doing that to elicit like a kind of cluster feeding from your baby. And
Mhm.
it just gives your body extra boost. So like one time a day, you could do that for like a week and see how your milk supply increases
Mhm.
from there too.
I'm just gonna pause you. Do you want to let your little girl or guy in? I don't want your. Is that
I
you?
know.
Do you want?
Yeah, that's my
Are they better if you
she's
let him in, or she?
she
She's like,
might be.
Mom, Mom.
I know, she's my barker.
Yeah, I've got two of those.
Hey, can you stop?
She's like, no, I want you to give me attention.
I
Can
know.
you?
I'm so sorry. I'm like,
No, don't be sorry. I just didn't want you to feel because we can always take things out. What
I
kind of
know. I
dog do
could
you
hear
have?
her. She's adopted. She's like a black mouth cur.
Oh, I don't even know what kind of dog that is.
She was resurrendered twice, so she's got wicked anxiety issues. But she's at her
Oh,
forever home.
yeah, she's with and she is fine now. She's with mom, and if she barks in, it's not a big deal. Like
Okay.
it's just me.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Laura's there too,
Good
but
girl.
we edit everything out. And you're doing great. This is like so enlightening to me, and I'm so happy to. I'm just very proud of you for all that you know and creating this business and helping other moms. So good job, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's super important to me because it's something I wish I had with my first son, is
Mm-hmm.
somebody really, like egging me on, like, hey, this stuff is important to kind of know
Mm-hmm.
ahead of time. So then when you come across one of those challenges, you kind of
Mm-hmm.
at least know a little bit of what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know how to trust your body. Okay, are they getting enough? I don't know. Let's focus on the diapers. Let's focus on the
Mm-hmm.
output. Is the weight loss okay? All right, then we're good.
Right.
Having more confidence to know all the things are going right
Mm-hmm.
until your milk comes in.
What about when you're so engorged and you are trying to nurse, but like nothing will happen? How do you,
Mm.
I mean, it's a phase of like hours, but it can be very frustrating.
Yeah.
What do you do at that point?
So actually, a lot of research has changed on engorgement, that they don't want you to use heat anymore because it's just
Okay.
increasing a lot more swelling and inflammation in the
Mm-hmm.
breast as your milk is coming in. So they actually want you to use cold.
Okay.
So I really encourage moms. What happens sometimes is when their milk comes in so fast, and I know you had talked about this with your
Mm-hmm.
son. I
Mm-hmm.
think because you fed formula first, and then when you started to breastfeed, then your milk came in hard and fast. And we see that
Yes.
sometimes when they weren't stimulating enough, kind of longer periods in between, maybe doing both formula and breastfeeding, and then all of a sudden their milk comes in full force and
Mm-hmm.
their body wasn't used to taking out enough, and
Mm-hmm.
they have a harder time eliciting a letdown. And if you are
Mm.
not having a letdown, that milk is not coming out. So you still have
Oh.
to have that stimulation of the letdown to open up the breast ducts and release that milk. If you don't
Okay.
have that, then it's just staying in there, plus all that swelling.
Mm-hmm.
Another great tip that I love to tell moms is reverse pressure softening. Sometimes when your
Mm-hmm.
milk comes in so much, the baby can't even latch on the breast because there's so much milk and fluid from labor and delivery, if they gave you a lot of
Mm-hmm.
fluids, or towards the front of the breast, that they actually
Mm-hmm.
flatten out the nipples sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because
That
there's
was
so
me.
much fluid in the front. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, you want to lay completely flat and take your hands, like 3 fingers on either side, and you push
Mm-hmm.
back
Mm-hmm.
on right next to the nipple for about a full minute to try and
Mm-hmm.
push some of that fluid away from the breast. And then you
Mm.
can maybe pump for 5 minutes to take some more milk out from the front and then latch your baby. or see if your baby will latch. But if it's so full in the front, they have nothing to kind of grab onto,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a hard time eliciting that letdown. Or a pump does too. So doing some of that reverse pressure softening and along with some cold packs to try and reduce some of the swelling. Because after
Mm-hmm.
delivery in the hospitals now, especially with C-sections, they give you so
Mm-hmm.
many extra IV fluids. And
Right.
even though we're young, healthy moms, your body's
Mm-hmm.
still so overloaded from pregnancy with everything
Mm-hmm.
being doubled that it's too much on your kidneys and everything to get rid of some of that fluid fast enough. So it
Yeah.
goes to the breasts. So think about
Mm-hmm.
all that fluid in your legs, that dependent edema in your
Yes.
legs, that
Yep.
also happens in the breasts because they're
Oh, that
dependent.
makes
They're
so much
hanging forward. So
sense.
all that fluid plus your milk coming in and they get super engorged.
Oh my
So
gosh,
just
that
like
makes
nice,
sense.
yeah, nice, gentle kind of like massage and
Mm-hmm.
then some cold packs and then just try to pump or nurse right after and do some reverse pressure softening. Super helpful.
See, I was young too. I was 23 when I had my oldest, and I feel like I wasn't mature enough to be like putting things in place. Oh, this will help,
Right.
and this will help. And
Yes.
I was talking to a friend of mine that had a lot of pelvic floor trauma, that she had a very similar, even though I had a C section, she had just so intense pain and just so much
Yeah.
trauma that it was so hard to then focus on, okay, I can and be positive. I can be really good at
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And then that crying when they have that new cry and you just want to make them feel better. And so you go to formula that it unfortunately can dampen your excitement for
Yeah.
this new stage of motherhood from being pregnant to now being a nursing mom and the demands that it
Absolutely.
takes.
Absolutely. There's actually a lot of hospitals now, and our hospital just got it too, is a donor milk program. So we
Oh,
get milk from the donor milk banks, and it's pasteurized human donor milk, so it's tested against
mm-hmm.
all, HIV, AIDS, everything like that. And moms are given the option that if they want to continue exclusively breastfeeding, say if baby got jaundice too quickly or lost
Mm.
too much weight, or there's some type of other issue, mom can supplement with some donor milk if they consent and then still pump, give their milk first, supplement with that after, but keep that gut microbiome the same without
Mm-hmm.
introducing formula. And then, so hopefully we can kind of
Oh,
bridge that gap until their milk comes in until they can get home. So then they can stay exclusively breastfeeding. So
that is
that's
so
great too. So
cool.
a lot of hospitals are doing that too. So that's super important for moms to know if they truly want to exclusively breastfeed to try and look for a
Mm-hmm.
hospital. All baby friendly hospitals do that. They have human donor milk programs, but then a lot of other hospitals are starting to incorporate them as well, which is
Oh
really
my
exciting.
gosh. That is so cool. I love that.
Yeah, I
Love
know.
it.
I do too.
Um, Now, so at Checkable, we have two breast milk strips that we've just come out with. One of them is
Yeah.
the alcohol strip,
Mhm.
and which is just measuring, helping moms. So if they are
Yeah.
pumping after drinking alcohol, that
Mhm.
they can be sure that it's good to save. So going on that same
Right.
line of, okay, is this good milk for your baby?
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
other one is a breast milk nutrition strip that no one has come out with. So we're measuring zinc and calcium and protein, and
Yeah, that's awesome.
going to mom's eating of, it just like hit just right now. It was like a light bulb, like, oh yeah, I don't know if I was eating enough. I don't know if I was
Right.
giving my body the right nutrition for my baby. And so we want to help moms. So okay, am I eating the right foods? Am I even eating enough? There's so many different
Right.
things that we're always thinking about, but for that mom that wants to make sure that she has the healthiest milk, we have those
Right.
products.
Right.
I'll
Absolutely.
send you some, Jen.
Yeah, no, I would love to have some and talk to everybody about them. I think it's really cool. And the number one tip that I remember from a breastfeeding support group is, it's actually kind of funny to say, but the best time to actually drink alcohol is while you're currently nursing. Because if you
Hmm.
think about it, the breast milk that's currently in your breast doesn't even have
Mm-hmm.
any alcohol in it. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
sipping a glass of wine while you're nursing your baby,
Mm-hmm.
by the time they breastfeed the next time, maybe in 3 or 4 hours, the majority will already kind of be out of your system or be a lot
Right.
less. So that's
Right.
also encouraging to moms too, that it's, it's okay to have a glass of wine,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on. I'm a white wine girl. So
Yeah.
I had a couple of glasses of wine when I was nursing, and you just have to remember it's not like you're pregnant where when you're drinking it's going directly into your bloodstream and directly to
Mm.
the baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different process. So you're drinking it, goes into your stomach, then it goes into your bloodstream, then it goes into your milk. So it's further diluted in your system
Mm-hmm.
anyways,
Mm-hmm.
and those strips are just an extra measure so if moms feel a little overwhelmed and if they're still a little nervous, I love to teach them that they can dilute it. So take fresh cooked
Oh.
milk and
Mm-hmm.
then label your other milk if you had something to drink and you're a little
Mm-hmm.
nervous,
Mm-hmm.
and cut it in half with some fresh
Oh,
milk with
yeah.
some I used to call it drunk milk, even though I
Yeah.
wasn't drunk, but that's
Yeah.
what I labeled my bags.
Yeah.
And you would just cut it in half, and then that
Okay.
way you can either further dilute it with some fresh milk so they get even less if you were a little
Mhm.
concerned. So
Oh, that's
that is a
so
great tip too.
interesting. That's a really
Yeah.
great tip. Wonderful tip. Now, a question on before I let you go, I want to just talk quick about pumps. There's so
Yeah.
many different pumps now on the market.
Oh
And
my gosh, yes.
like, you're an expert, the lactation expert. What do you recommend for moms?
So number one, you always want to make sure you have a hospital grade pump.
Okay.
Super important because we are seeing so many come on the market from places like China,
Mm.
India, Vietnam. Not anything against them, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't hold to the same safety standards as we do in the
Mm-hmm.
United States.
Mm-hmm.
And those plastics are leaching very harmful chemicals into the breast milk.
Oh,
So,
interesting. Okay.
they're using
Wow.
ones that aren't like the phthalates and the PFOs and all those types of things. They're using the cheapest chemicals and plastics to put with the breast pumps. So you want to get something that is American made. I don't recommend any of the ones on Amazon unless it's a well-known, brand like Lancino, Medela, Spectra.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
are my top three that I highly
Okay.
recommend, because I'm seeing a lot of moms are like, oh, I can get a hands-free breast pump, like a mom cozy for like 35, $40. And I'm like, hmm. I just try to
Yeah.
give them the education on it. In the end,
Yeah.
it's their choice what they want to
Mm-hmm.
purchase. And I know some people issue with finances, but I always try to encourage them that it's a federal law that every mom gets a free breast pump, that with
Oh,
each
really?
pregnancy. I got a brand new one. That is a federal law
Okay.
now. So even if you're on WIC or Medicaid, it
Mm-hmm.
takes longer. They don't allow you to get your breast pump until after your baby's born, about 3 or 4 weeks, because they want you to focus on breastfeeding. But it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if you have a NICU baby, because I've come across that where mom was Medicaid and she was like, they don't let me order it until 5 weeks. And
Mm.
I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But definitely not going off Amazon. So Spectra S2 is my absolute favorite. And the almost all the breast pumps are closed systems now, which means the moisture from the milk isn't going into the pump parts and creating blood
Oh,
mold or
okay.
anything like that.
Right.
So almost all of the systems are closed now, which is good. So you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, definitely making sure it's a hospital grade by a well-known lactation company,
Mm-hmm.
or it's provided by your insurance. You know that that's going to be a safe one to use. But
Okay.
yeah, the market out there is overwhelming with the amount of breast
Mm-hmm.
pumps that are coming out from these companies that have no name, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't know where the products are coming from and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So it does make me a little nerve wracking because that's the milk that you're feeding to your baby. And
Mm-hmm.
especially if they put them in dishwashers heat up that plastic and then it leaches
Oh,
even more
right.
into the milk. So it's always good to just hand wash them in a bucket. So it's
Yep.
not like super hot steam.
Mm-hmm.
That's super important too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
What
yeah, there's so
about
many pumps on the market.
there are the discreet ones that you can
Mhm.
just put in your bra? Are one of those three that option?
Yeah, they are. Medela actually makes them. Lancino does not, but I know Willow, the LV, but I actually
Mm-hmm.
do not recommend those for moms in the beginning.
Okay.
But I know a lot of them will get them because their insurance covered it, or it was a
Mm-hmm.
smaller upsell.
Yeah.
But because they have been known um, to die sooner and have more
Oh.
problems. Because if you're going to be pumping, you're usually probably going to be pumping for almost an additional year after baby, and
Mm-hmm.
they have been known to fail, lose suction, lose power, because think they're all battery operated. So it's not like
Right.
you have something plugged into an outlet that has 100% power the entire
Right.
time. If it's going on lower battery, it's the suction isn't going to be as strong because it doesn't have as much power. So things kind of
Yep.
peter out. It's like a battery life. Think about it, a
Yes.
flashlight, using a flashlight for a year with the same
Mm-hmm.
batteries.
Yep.
Eventually, it's going to go out. You're not
Mm-hmm.
plugging it in every time. So I do recommend moms to not get those in the beginning, especially um, if they, for example, have a NICU baby or anything, or they're really
Right.
trying to focus on getting a good milk supply. And then
Mm-hmm.
later on, if they want to, once their supply is established, 3 or 4 months down the road, and they're going back to work and
Mm-hmm.
use the discrete pumps,
Yeah.
fantastic. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's great. But in the beginning, it makes me nervous that it's not going to have the same power
Mm-hmm.
to get their milk in. You know?
Right. That makes sense. I
Yeah.
use the pump when I had the little backpack Medela one,
Yes.
and I plugged it into my car because I was a rep. So
Yeah.
I rep to hospital. So I would be in the hospital parking lot living in Minnesota. So I distinctly remember being very cold and like
Cold.
having my
Yes.
car on and like heat full blast plugged in. And here I am pumping. I'm like, I got to do what I got to do. Like I'm a working mom. What? And I still want to nurse my baby.
I
So
know.
we,
Yeah, I
we,
used
we
to
make
pump
it
in the
work.
car too. I would have my hands-free pumping bra underneath my
Mm-hmm.
scrub top. I'd lift up, plug myself
Yep.
in, 20 minutes to work, take it out,
Oh my
put it
gosh,
away when I
that's
got there.
brilliant. You can do that
I would do
now?
it. Oh yeah, and I was like so nervous that I was gonna get pulled over one day pumping. Never happened. Never happened. But it was so funny. I was like, I can only imagine what they would do if they were like, oh my god, what is happening?
So uncomfortable. Unless it was a woman police
But
officer or else a dad
exactly,
that's had
exactly.
lots of kids.
Exactly. But yeah, it's such an easy way, and I tell moms that when they're going back to work, and like that's part of my app too, is I talk about like some of those good tips and tricks that
Mhm.
will help you. So because you
That's
have to pump
awesome.
so long over the day, pumping on the
Hmm.
way to work or pumping on the way home or dream
Hmm.
feeding before you go, those are all like
Whoa.
kind of good tips that you can do.
Those are great tips. So
Yeah.
everyone can find this on the App Store. The
Mhm.
lactation. No, what is the app again?
So it's called Latched,
Latched.
Latch apostrophe D. Yeah. So Latched. It's purple.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for
You're
being on
welcome.
the podcast. Actually, I wanted to ask you one more question that I think is really important
Sure.
before we go, and that's about mastitis. How do we, like, you
Yes.
mentioned about being engorged, but if you get an infection, like
Mhm.
it can happen really fast. Can you just tell us about that
Yes.
quick? I don't want to leave without you sharing.
Yeah. No, mastitis is one of the things that it doesn't matter where you are in your breastfeeding journey. It can happen
Mm-hmm.
literally anytime. It could happen
Mm-hmm.
right after birth, a couple months down the road, or 9 months down the road, because that's how it
Mm-hmm.
was for me. I got it 2 times out of 3 kids. And
Really?
the first thing I like to tell moms is if all of a sudden you get a quick fever and you're feeling chills, but you have no respiratory symptoms, like no cough, no sore throat, no runny nose, think mastitis. You might not
Okay.
even have a red spot on your breast. It
Mm-hmm.
might just be like a little tender, but watch for those other symptoms because you get a high fever real quick and
Mm-hmm.
you want to catch it early. The quicker you catch it, the faster, um, the less chance of antibiotics you need, which is
Okay.
super important. So I was actually able to avoid antibiotics my second time. I took this tincture called Happy Ducks that my midwife had recommended to me. I did Tylenol, Motrin, uh, breastfed, then did cold compresses after, rotated with Motrin and Tylenol every 6 hours, and just nursed through it, even though you feel sick. You feel like you have the
Mm.
flu, but you have
Yeah.
no respiratory symptoms. And just the earlier you can catch it, and then I would take that tincture underneath my tongue multiple times a day, however it said on the bottle. And I got through it, pushed through it, and was able to avoid antibiotics, which was
Really?
amazing. Yeah,
Okay.
but it can reduce your milk supply, and I tell moms that after it's a lot for your body to kind of go through to fight that
Mm-hmm.
infection in the breast, plus on top of making milk. So you will
Mm-hmm.
see a normal little dip in your supply. Don't stress about it. Just
Mm-hmm.
get back with your nutrition, your hydration, push through it. If you're too tired to breastfeed, just pump, give baby bottles temporarily until you can get
Mm-hmm.
past it. But super, super important to know is to kind of push through it. But as soon as you get that fever, it gets really high. It's usually anything over 100. It happens
Okay.
quick,
Okay.
quick.
Great
Then check your
advice.
breasts, but you might not have a redness because I know a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
say that, like, oh, check for any red marks. I didn't have
Yeah.
any. but it didn't
Really?
really hurt. I just got the
Okay.
fever real quick. And then I
Yep.
just felt the chills, the fatigue, and your body aches and all of that. But
Mm-hmm.
I did, and then got through it really quickly. And another quick thing is antibiotics are fine with breastfeeding. I'll
Okay.
never forget, I had this mom call me one time. She was sobbing on the phone, and she said that she went to an urgent care, and this doctor told her that she had to take antibiotics, but she couldn't breastfeed her baby.
Huh.
And she didn't breastfeed her newborn or hold them for a couple weeks while she had pneumonia.
Oh my
And her
gosh.
supply went down and all these things, and she called and she was like, I'm nervous to still feed. It's the antibiotics. And I go, that's an antibiotic that we would give a baby, so it's
Right.
totally fine to breastfeed. So I
Right.
always encourage moms, like, if you're taking any medication, reach out to an IBCLC, somebody
Mm-hmm.
that's certified, because we have a whole online system called
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hale's Medications in Mother's Milk, and we can
Okay.
look up any medication and see what level it is on and kind of
Okay.
what's the chances of it going into your breast milk. But the majority of antibiotics are safe, because those are the majority of antibiotics we give them in NICU, like
Mm-hmm.
gentamicin, clindamycin, ampicillin. And
Okay.
so that mom could have breastfed the whole time. And to
Oh,
have somebody that doesn't know anything about lactation tell her that she
right.
can't nurse or hold her baby because she was going to infect them just broke my heart,
Yeah.
so for moms to know that even if you are going to go on antibiotics, it's still okay to nurse. You don't have to dump your milk or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then just kind of push through it, because
That's
it's
such a
not
big
it's not fun
deal.
to nurse. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It makes me so sad to tell them that they have to throw away all that milk
Right.
for when it's completely fine. Like, the
Right.
benefits outweigh so much with breast milk. That's what we kind
Right.
of look at, is
Mm-hmm.
like, how much is that going to really affect baby compared to the
Mm-hmm.
benefits that breast milk give, the
Mm-hmm.
immunity, the nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
the fat, the weight gain,
Mm-hmm.
everything. So super important.
I love that you're a champion for moms and breastfeeding. That is just awesome. Jenn
Thank you.
Boulay, the lactation expert. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you so much, Patty. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And everyone, you can find Jenn on all social media platforms, and she is the lactation expert. And it was nice to talk to you. Good luck with the rest of your business. And thanks again for being
Thank
on the
you.
Checkable Health podcast. I'm signing off, everyone. I'm Patty Post, your host. Please like our podcast, give us 5 stars. If you love this episode, please give us a review. What did you like about it? And follow Jenn. And until next time, keep on living your healthiest life. Now, be well. Thanks, Jenn.
Thank you.